Hello and welcome to the Deep Talk Podcast, a podcast and community dedicated to learning, growing, and connecting more deeply with ourselves and one another. I'm Madison Brandt, your host. Let's get started with this week's Deep Talk. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Talk Podcast. As always, so happy to have you all here. Today I have Kevin Crenshaw on, who is also the heart guy on his social media. You may have seen his content and his work, and he talks a lot about relationships and human transformation and healing. He's an author. He has his book coming out, which I will have in my show notes, as always, called Perspectives. And this episode is really about the perspective we have on life. And so, if you are somebody like me and like Kevin who has spent a lot of your life trying to control everything, and for us and for me, that has looked like doing a million businesses and a billion hobbies and constantly trying to make myself enough just to only feel the way that I feel. And, he shares his story with that as well. But whatever it is that you do in life to try to change your outside reality so you feel different inside, whatever form of control you lean into, we really talk about how to let go and let God. Maybe you're not religious. Maybe you are someone who is more spiritual and someone who is more connecting with the universe. I really want you to take this in a way that feels good for you to receive it. But it's really about Kevin's journey in all of his endeavors that he took to try to find himself, realizing they were all lateral moves until he found God and spirituality and learning how to let go and surrender and what that really means. And so I know a lot of us in life struggle to let go of control, to give up, to trust that there is a higher version of life we are meant to live that isn't necessarily the one that we have planned for and the one that we keep trying to grip onto and create for ourselves. There is a beautiful life for every single one of ourselves, but we have to learn when to stop clenching onto a life that isn't necessarily the one that is meant to be lived through us. And so that takes a very certain kind of courage. And again, whether you're spiritual or not, this episode is going to change your heart in a lot of ways. It was very interesting to hear for me, especially as someone who has been working and understanding their spirituality throughout the years. And so, again, for anyone who wants to learn how to let go more and trust and give up control, because sometimes that's the last most important thing we need after a long time of just trying to muscle everything. It's just how we find peace. It's how we learn to let go, give in, give up, and let life move through us. So let's talk about how to do that. His story is honestly life-changing, and it's going to give you a total new perspective. So listen up, and I hope you guys enjoy. Hey, Kevin, welcome to the Deep Talk Podcast. How has your morning been so far?
Slow, which is great and new for me.
What is it usually?
For most of my life, it was fast and full, and I'm in a huge season shift right now where I'm just pulling back, down regulating, simplifying. Like I'm cleansing parasites and Lyme disease right now, so
Oh, wow.
that's
Oh,
also
wow.
like taxing on the body. But going from like hyper productive and like always on to like, hey, I actually have to like chill out. That's the season I'm in, at least. So
That's very interesting. I find myself in that season of being somebody who's like chronically busy and chronically like I have an empty space. Can I fill it with something so that I can like grow or like do more? And now I'm like, I feel like my body's like, it's time to do less. So I'm with you on that. It feels really good.
Yeah, I just don't want to like have all my work be for nothing. And I think a lot of my work has been for nothing, just spinning in circles, whether it was inner work or outer work. And I'm like, dang, I like, you could say it was all for a reason and everything's for a purpose, but I'm like, that was a lot of unnecessary stuff I could have avoided. So
what did it make? Did moving really fast make it unnecessary?
oh yeah, that was one of the biggest things.
What do you mean?
I feel like I damaged myself a lot by
Yeah.
always being fast and always doing everything quickly. I sabotaged relationships that way. I cut corners in business that ended up costing me financially.
Yeah.
Everything. I like hung on to the quote "success loves speed," and I I was addicted to caffeine, and this goes deep because I had
Yeah.
insecurities, and then when I finally got noticed, it was because of my energy. So I couldn't be this guy you're seeing right now before because I wouldn't get accepted in my subconscious. So I literally developed an insane caffeine addiction,
Oh my
like
gosh.
1,000 milligrams a day. It's
Oh
like,
my gosh.
10 cups of coffee.
Do you not have coffee now? Like, are
No,
you?
I'm 2 months completely sober of caffeine. For about the past year and a half, I've
Oh
been
my God.
either on and off, or I'll have like a little bit of green tea here and there or something. But I don't. Now I'm just completely done with it.
Like, do you do kombucha or anything like that?
Nope.
Or no?
Nope.
Wow. Well, that's an accomplishment. I was like, are you the type of person that's like, instead of like adding things, you're gonna be like, I'm done? Like, you're just
Subtract.
cut off?
Yeah, because that was me before. I was like, oh, and then I need this thing, and I need this supplement, and then this protocol, and this, and now I'm tearing everything up, and just I'm doing a lot of fasts now too, which has been
Yeah.
brought me closer to God and right relationship with myself, and
Mm.
that's
Mhm,
all
mhm.
about taking away things. It's not about adding things.
I know you've probably read this quote and it's so cheesy, but I think it's like by Rumi and I read it once, but I think about it for like everything. It's like it's like unlearning the ways of unlove. If you've seen that little quote that's
The
like
one,
that's
the one
not.
of barriers, removing the
Yeah.
barriers. Yeah, so that's basically the foundation of the work that I've done for the past 8 years. That quote. It's not the um,
I don't it's like not how to
your
love.
task is not to seek for love, but to
Yes.
seek for all the barriers you've built within yourself against it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I feel like at one point with especially like what you're doing right now, it's like it relates to that of like taking away things and like
Oh
stripping
yeah,
back to like the base of who you are, which
yep.
is really scary and vulnerable. But that's the
Especially in
work.
doing it in a public eye and in any regard.
Yeah, what you're doing. Um, let's have you do a little intro on who you are. I know that that is a really terrible question, but you can answer in any way
Yeah,
that you want, and any
yeah,
way that it feels applicable. Like you could literally just be like, "I am Kevin,
yeah, yeah.
and I'm existing right now."
Well, my name is Kevin Crenshaw, and I love Jesus, and am very tender. I'm a DJ.
Mm.
I mean, as you can see, very artistic. Um, I whoop ass in Call of Duty still, and I'm really good at human transformation and supporting people in their process of
Yeah,
unlearning or becoming who they, closer to God and closer to themselves.
yeah.
Um, and it's a brief summary. I don't know. I
No,
could
that's
spin off in a bajillion different ways.
no, it's enough, and I think that people usually respond to that as, like, what they're doing, and, I'm reading The Untethered Soul right now, and now I'm like,
Mm.
all the ways that I answer that question feel different, now, but
Yeah.
the DJ thing is cool. You do a lot of
Yeah,
different things.
I do, which is difficult sometimes to be in, in my
Are you a
existence.
manifesting generator?
You bet.
Okay, I'm the same.
Uh,
It's so hard because you have to, like, scratch that itch of, like, in that part of you that, like, wants all the different things, but then I also feel like this opposing energy of also wanting that
well,
stability and stillness and to not do that,
and what we
and so
talked
it's
about
like
earlier of the so many things, and then
yes,
this thing, and then this thing, and this. At
yes.
one point, I had 6 different businesses on it, and like
I just added another one.
right now, I've got one with a side gig of DJing, and I left business obligations, I tore down companies, and it's just I get to have I really what it
Yeah.
is variety. I crave
I
variety,
crave variety.
and
Yes.
that's why I was nomadic for so long. That's it was hard to like commit to living in a house
Yeah.
because I was like, well, how am I going to get my variety? And I'm like, what? Get it in other ways, but that craving for variety is interesting. The
Yes.
desire or the need, so to speak, for variety, if gone unchecked, can really ruin things. Um, at least it's been my own experience. And that's led me down the rabbit hole of understanding needs, and not every
Yes.
need is your own,
Yes.
and understanding frequencies and entities and the
Mm.
like, not just mental programming, but things that we
Yeah.
think we want or need that we actually don't. That is a manipulation within ourselves.
Yes, totally. I find that like especially with my need for variety, it had me always craving like more of it. And it
Right.
was like an endless hole of like there's no amount of more in any area of variety, whether it was hobbies or friendships or businesses. Like I could just keep adding at the expense of myself forever.
Yep. And that's a clear sign that it may not actually be you that's craving it.
It's like an inner part of you. like a with inner child part of you, do you feel like?
It's so I'm going to go off on tangent for a second. So
Yes.
and kind of share my life
Yeah.
and how I
I
think.
wanna talk about your
Um,
story. Yeah.
yeah. So I've got a book coming out in September 30th.
Mhm.
So if y'all listening before then, it's on
Yes.
pre-order. If afterwards, go to Amazon. It's called Perspectives by Kevin
Mhm.
Crenshaw, and I share. It's like contemplative art. It's things
Yes.
to read a few times. I'm not speaking very direct on stuff.
Mhm.
It was really fun to write, but it's all about freeing you up to a new lived experience.
Yeah.
Through reading it, you think about things differently, and then your
Mhm.
reality starts to change. So, because you're changing perspectives, so you're not your mind, you're not your body, you're not your emotions,
Yeah.
you're your soul. And if you can identify as your soul or your spirit, then even parts work isn't that is over here.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
You see what I mean? So,
Yeah.
like, yes, through that lens and with that perspective, whatever game you play, whatever perspective you have on life, you're going to play that game and live in that matrix or live in that reality.
Mm.
And so, the bigger perspective you have, the more connected you are to the fullest truth, because
Mhm.
all of it's
Mhm.
true, right?
Yeah.
I could sit here, we can have a whole conversation about parts work and a part of you's doing this, and then zoom out, and that's somewhat true, but then, at least in my lived experience, it was shame, and that wasn't a part of me. And zoomed out even more, it wasn't even my own shame. It was something like that was, you could say, an
Yeah.
entity that was
Yeah.
cast out of me. And then I just dropped it. I didn't have to do any inner work. So there's layers to this shit, right? Are you
Mm.
friends with your demons and you're trying to inner work these things that aren't you? But if you don't know who you are, you're susceptible to all of your experience being you. And that's the hook of deception, keeping you entrapped and enslaved with your reality.
Mm. Mhm.
Your opinions and your beliefs are the
Yeah.
chains of your reality.
Mhm.
But if they're not actually your beliefs, but you think they're your beliefs because, it was told to you by somebody in your past or whatever, boom, locked up. And so you have to let go of your need for being right and your self-righteousness to even break out of that. So anyway, that I,
No, that was
this is I know you wanted to ask about my story, but I'm like, yo, this is what I geek out on right now because my life
Yeah.
has been absolutely changed after over 10 years of diving into personal development and spirituality and plant medicine and all these things. And I just see all of it as a waste with the perspective that I have now and what's happened in my life.
So interesting because I took that rabbit hole too, like so much of like somatic work, and like nervous system work. And oh my gosh, I did neurofeedback. I did literally so many things.
Yeah.
And I feel like literally none of them, like, I guess on some level a little bit helped, but I just felt
Right.
like at one point I was just like this information machine. Like I like know so
Sure.
many things. And then I was like, I still feel like I'm living in this perspective. I still feel
Yep.
not good about my life and myself. And I think part of it, shame is like a huge thing. But I think yeah, zooming out, it's like dropping it and like living your life and befriending it on some level. But I'm curious of like how that with your life story like came to
Mhm.
be. Like how did we end up learning that? Because that's a lot of things to go through to get to that. Like that's a lot of yeah.
Yeah. So I move fast, did,
Mhm. Yes.
and I'm intense.
Mhm.
And so when I picked a rabbit hole to go down, I went to the end of it
Yeah.
and then pulled back and went to the end of it. And I just kept doing that, I think. So
Yeah.
anyway, I grew up extremely unhealthy physically, shy nerd kid.
Mhm.
Then the first three relationships that I was in ended because they cheated on me.
Mm.
And I was like, what the actual fuck is going on? And then I was like, oh, I'm a people pleaser, codependent Mr. Nice Guy that doesn't have a backbone. Got it. So then that started me on my personal development journey.
Yeah.
And people kept coming to me for relationship questions because they always see me
Yeah.
reading books on love and relationship because I was fascinated with trying to figure out what was going on from my
Yes.
pain.
I see. Yeah.
And one of my friends at the time said that what I shared with him saved his marriage. And I was like, I'm 23, right? At the time, I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa. And then I'm also diving deep, and I was crewing for Tony Robbins and in that scene. And so I was
What?
surrounded by coaches and personal development, and
Mhm.
everybody was a coach. So this was before everybody's a coach now, right? My, and I was like, okay, like I guess I'm going to do the coaching things, and people keep asking me about it.
Yeah.
Well, not that before that actually happened, I was homeless for a few weeks in Dallas, living on the streets with literally begging for food. Um, and so going through that experience, I learned to let go of material things.
Yeah.
That was a really rough path. And then really struggled for a while, and a lot of scarcity and a lot of shame that I didn't realize. I was in a lot of hurt. I was lost.
Yeah.
But I kept working on myself, and I kept building the business, and eventually things started kicking in 2019.
Yeah.
Created a course for healing from a breakup, created a course from healing from codependency.
Yeah.
And then at the end of 2019, the height at back then of my career was making multi six figures and helping hundreds, thousands of people.
Yeah.
I had an accidental overdose with plant medicine that left me psychotic for a month and ruptured a lot of my stomach, and it was a whole thing.
Mhm.
And so I shut everything down and pulled back, and that's when I dove into somatic work and
Yeah.
understanding the inner workings of the body and what that effect happened. Thank God I was connected to a somatic experience practitioner because
Yeah.
he literally brought me back to life. Um, and then I struggled for like 5 years, 4 years with extreme stomach problems,
Mhm.
digestive issues, back pain, um,
Oh my god.
kind of like a darkness season where business dissolved, everything crumbled.
Mm.
I was getting by from money from a inheritance that I got from my father when he passed away, and then one-on-one clients here and there, and then um, more of my own pattern in relationship kept showing up, and I just hit a point, and then I tried to start other businesses, and they collapsed. I'm still dealing with some of those financial issues, and I'm just like, man, I have reached the end of myself. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in personal development, seeking plant medicine, seeking shamans, seeking mentors, coaches, da 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 da, da all the things. I'm like, where's God in this?
Mm.
I edged him out. I grew up in the church and I grew up Christian, but I was versed in scripture, but I never really like had a relationship with God.
Yeah.
And then seeking God in the way I was doing with plant medicine and everything else, I thought I had a perspective of God that was, all encompassing. And when I had that perspective, I was the most lost and the most in pain.
Mhm.
Just my own experience, I'll say. And so I was like, okay, I've been, I just got convicted. It's the first time I felt conviction in my life in this big, where I was like, full stop. I've been doing this all my way. What do I want to do? What are
Mhm.
my desires? What am I going to build? What am I going to get? And I
Very
just saw how
seeking.
my life was riddled with selfishness and me,
Yeah.
me, 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 me. And I was like, that was the first time I was humbled, and I was like, I've got to learn how to do this God's way. And in order to do that, I got to learn who God is actually. And so I started going to church and hearing sermons differently with my understanding of all the 10 years that I was seeking and in spirituality, so to speak, and started just develop like praying again and just developing a relationship with God. And that opened up to the reality. That was the big cornerstone of the reality that I'm in now, of just having my own relationship with God, not somebody telling me what to think or believe, but actually having my own relationship. And, you know, I never really had that for the first almost 30 years of my life.
Mhm.
It was just opinions on God, and God's over here, the universe, and the universe is always working. And,
Yeah.
you know, now I'm starting to continuing to know God more intimately, and um, through an actual relationship. And that's changed my life. The way that my life has been in the past 2 years since that, like, not my will but your will
Yeah.
moment. All of my gut pain's gone. All of my back pain's gone. I was riddled with worry from My mom, when she was pregnant with me, was extremely worried because she couldn't get pregnant, then did, then they almost lost me, and then it was like, whole thing. So I'm developing in the chemicals of worry, right? Uh, got rid of that, and it still comes up every once in a while, but it's a healthy dosage of worry. It's not manic. I had mental
Mhm.
health issues. Um, I struggled with depression and suicide and anxiety,
Yeah.
crippling anxiety. And I'm not perfect, but I've been freed from a lot of that stuff. And it's crazy because the work started working me. It wasn't inner work that changed all of that. It was just continuing to see God, and again, the perspective that I have now, recognizing like how toilsome it was and how I was just, like one of those cars you pull back and they like go forward.
Mhm.
Talking about, I was just revving my car back, 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 back. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, you're hurting yourself.
Yeah.
I'm like, I couldn't relax.
Yeah.
And you could look at that from so many perspectives: psychological, from the trauma that I had, nervous system wise, from, being homeless and all of that. I've been through a lot, but the only reason I'm at where I'm at now is God. There's like, and I think that says a lot. Like, I think God brings us into situations in our life
To find him?
to find him. And it's like, there's no way I could have gotten myself out of that situation. I didn't do this. That was God. And before,
Yeah.
I was trying to get myself out of everything.
Mhm.
And I still have, like, surrendering to God's will is the most empowering thing I've ever done.
It's like the final thing almost.
Maybe I'm just getting started, I feel like, but yeah.
The final but the beginning.
It's a turn of the page for sure. So anyway, that's, my overview of my story, riddled
Yeah.
with, the a lot of trauma and heartache and
Mm.
failed relationships. I did relationship coaching for so long because I had a lot of experience. And I'm in the middle of something new, a huge overhaul of my brand and my business and what it is that I'm doing. And I think I'm actually getting to the core of what I've always done and just didn't know it.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. And I'm curious of like the seeking energy you had towards everything else. Like what made that different with God? Because I feel like I could imagine myself being like, that's another thing to do to like
Sure.
fix myself, like making
Sure.
that just another book to read or another thing. And like, how is that experience a different one versus all the other things you had done? Like, how do you operate differently in that experience?
Oh, I'm thinking. I don't know. All I know is I have peace,
Yeah.
and I didn't before.
Yeah.
It's
I
probably
bet
the
it, yeah.
realist answer to that. And I get it. Like, it's like, oh, well, that's just another thing, and like I got to find it within myself. And
Yeah.
I found peace, and there isn't any more seeking. And when there when there is, it's usually because my relationship with God's rocky, or I'm not, you know, seeing reality. And it's like when you have a distorted view of reality, you have more pains in your own reality.
Yeah.
And so, to me, I get it, like the seeking thing. There's still more to learn. I don't feel rushed, not because I disciplined myself to slow down, because I tried to do that before, but there was just no breaks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No matter how much discipline, accountability, anything that I set up, oh my God.
Because it was coming from you and like that same
Sure,
energy.
sure. Now there's just, I don't know, my soul feels nourished.
Yeah.
I have peace. I'm not, there's nothing to prove. There's nothing to, I'm, it's the feeling of coming home,
Hmm.
but I feel like people have that experience and then a few weeks later are back in their patterns.
Yeah.
For me, it's been 2 years. So That's all I can say.
Yeah. Like, this shit is
And I'm
work.
just continuing to grow deeper in it and have my eyes be opened to unlearning the things that,
Yeah.
as you were talking about,
Yeah.
like even, on the real, like a lot of what's coming up this week for me, because I've taken a pause-ish from business, right? And
Yeah.
as I'm recreating what's next, the book launch is a big part of that.
Yeah.
I'm very excited, but going into it again, I'm like, whoa, like for so long, my business was the means to the end to get money, period. Like, yes, I helped a lot of people, and yes, there was a lot of love in that, and I love them so much, and I'm grateful and all the things, but the way that I actually showed up and approached my computer to do business
Mhm.
or plan things out was all for making money. And that
Yeah.
was my scarcity pattern coming out, even when I was making, tons of money every month.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that if I may talk about in my book
Of
of,
course.
so I used to do bodybuilding shows and physique shows. I was a group
Yeah.
fitness instructor back in the day.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I went from after all the shows, I developed binge eating disorder.
Yeah.
And then to, to change it, I started manically counting my calories and macros and,
Yeah.
being disciplined with all the things.
Mhm. Been there.
And it looked healthier and it looked like change. This has
Yeah.
happened multiple times in my life. Homeless to $250,000 a year. Whatever the thing is, it looks
Yeah.
like things got better.
Yes.
And so there's horizontal change
Mhm.
and vertical evolution. This is an
Mhm.
XY axis, right?
Yeah.
Things changed, but it was the same to my soul.
Yeah.
It was the same level of consciousness. It was the same spirit tormenting me,
Yeah.
right? The spirit of control. I went out of control to manic control. The
Yeah.
same, different sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
And so where I'm at now is recognizing that bit and how we can create these false realities, these different matrix, if you will, where
Yeah.
you're like actually not free any more free. You're just different, and different doesn't mean different is still the same to the spirit. To change in the spirit, I don't think we can actually will ourselves into. It's like this faux, like paradoxical thing in my own experience where it's a surrender
Mhm.
and God moves it for you.
That's it.
It's what I've experienced. My
Surrender.
To God's will and to God, yes, because when how I know it's real is that it changes me. And I think a lot of people are looking at whether it's God, and I know those are touchy subjects, but whether it's
That's
God
okay.
or your perspective of reality of how things should be, if it doesn't
Mm.
challenge your opinions, you're morphing reality around your ego, protecting yourself so that you don't have to change. Because if you have
Mm.
to change, that goes against the fundamental drive of being right in your psyche. That's the
Mhm.
strongest force in the human psyche, is to
Mhm.
be right.
Mhm.
It's a protective mechanism because if you're wrong, well, there goes your belief about yourself, your self-worth, who you are in the world, what the world is, and that can lead you down like a psychotic rabbit hole. So we tend to not do that in a healthy way and be right about things. But that, at least for me in my life, when I let go of being right,
Yeah.
that's when I opened up the opportunity for spiritual evolution.
Yeah.
And
You
it
were
was and
yeah.
it wasn't like a willpower thing. Again, downloads came through, experiences happened where God moved that needle for me. And that's where I'm like, I wasn't given the knowledge that I have. A lot of shit in my book, I'm like, how the fuck did I write that? Oh wait, I didn't. Like I'm like, oh yeah, okay. And
That's
maybe I did in a
amazing.
deep part of my psyche, but like, I got to give credits where credit's due.
Yeah.
And yeah, good on me. Like I'm putting the book out, and I am doing stuff. It's empowering, but I'm just full of gratitude, honestly, more than anything. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's my perspective, take it or leave it, for spiritual evolution, is that it's actually not in our control. What we do is try to control it and we stun it. So then we link ourselves in a reality and we only try to change. And then, like as you said, I was all doing all this seeking, and why do I still feel this way?
Yeah.
Or the classic example of somebody who's reached the mountain of achievement and success and multi-millions, and they commit suicide.
Yeah.
Same, different, same insecurities.
Because I feel like when you're talking about like you doing bodybuilding to like the back and forth of all those different things that you did, um, it probably looked to a lot of people like you were like coming out of things or to yourself, but they
Totally.
were all within like your own ego's comfortability and range.
Even with the shadows changed, the
Yeah.
desires, like the shadows changed
That's
face.
tricky. They
Yeah,
probably tricked
shadows.
you.
Yep, the shadows changed face. Everybody was cheering me on. It was this huge success story, right? I was on stage talking about this success story.
Yeah.
Look at my life now, and I think a lot of people are, and it's okay because you don't know what you don't know. But like what I see now is, I'm like, the real success story is the spiritual evolution, which
Ooh, yeah.
you can't point to yourself with that.
Mm. Yeah, oh my gosh, because 'cause you're trying to muscle it, like, that's I mean, I've tried to do it in so many areas in my life, and literally, it feels like it's it's interesting because it feels good, but it also really hurts. It's really hard, and,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
that's such a sign that it's also not right, but it's, like, it's so interesting to, like, hear that perspective because it's like, I have had that too. I used to do powerlifting. I was in a powerlifting group. I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
my god, I'm ripped," the whole macro thing, like, my
Yeah.
little 5'4" self in a powerlifting group? Are you kidding? I live in Minnesota.
Oh,
Like,
there you go.
no, like and when I would tell people that no, literally, and I was obsessed with telling people, like, I got my yoga certification, I was teaching yoga, and I was, like, always, like, adding a thing. I was always my friends are like, "You're doing so much, you're doing too much," but I'm like, but then I'd be like, "Guys, I'm learning how to balance," but then I'd add a new thing, and it was just all within my own range of what my ego felt comfortable with,
Mhm.
of what would make me look good to others or what would make me feel like I was performing this life performing um to to look like I was living it differently or good enough
Right.
or like had something to prove for my own insecurities. And so it's so interesting that like I feel such a deep shift in myself these last years. I don't do that stuff anymore. And I honestly do a lot less. Like I have a lot less friends that I invest into and um still working on it. I don't think I'm where you're at yet, which I can acknowledge, but I feel a shift of like I don't know, I just think you're just going back and forth on like that's such a good example. That's going to stay with me of just like the same level and at one point it just hurts so much to keep
Yeah.
living like that. It's
What
so
happened to me?
deeply
And I think
painful.
yep. And people that I've talked, that are around me, that I talk with, that have reached
Mhm.
that point, it's like
Mhm.
you have to reach the point of your own suffering so much to where you're like, okay, I'm ready to surrender. Like
Yeah.
I gotta throw in the towel,
I was sick of it.
because it's so against our biology
Yeah.
to let go of being right, which linchpins the rest of the transformation.
Yeah, you're just trying to protect that thing.
Hmm.
What you're just trying to
Even
hold
if
it
it's
and
a
still
shadow, even if you hate your reality,
yeah.
it's.
It's
I
it's
think in my
crazy
book,
that we do that. It's
one of my
crazy.
one of the sayings in my book, I called it being a beautiful slave to suffering, because you get a dopamine hit when you're right, and so you're comfortable, and it's like, look at me, I'm feeling great, but you don't realize you're even enslaved
Yeah.
to that reality. So anyway, one thing that came up too,
Yeah.
while we're talking about this, is like the concept of trust, right? And
Yes.
surrender requires trust.
Yes.
And I used to try to fabricate trust and create trust, and and I've been a trusting person. I'm quick to forgive, I would say, for the most part. Um, and so, sometimes it is hard, and there's definitely areas where I'm like, I don't
I don't
know,
wanna do it there, but I'll do it
like,
here.
exactly.
Mhm.
And the more that I love, the more trust I have, whether it's a person or God or
Oh my
myself.
gosh.
The more
Mm.
love there is, the more trust there is. Because trust isn't like, oh, I'm not going to get hurt. I trust that I'm not going to get hurt. I'm trust that it's going to go my way. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. It's trust in the bigger process. It's trust in like truth.
Yeah. You're kind of operating with God's way, I guess, in that,
Yep.
which what God is love, right? So
Yep.
you're letting, right, you're seeking him in the sense of letting him work through your life, but then also like he's seeking you like back. Like you're like living
Definitely.
through him and then he's living through you.
Yep. Yep.
That's
And the
really
more
interesting.
that love, all he can do is love. He's perfect love. So
Yeah.
if you, this is one of the things I talk about in the book, is like your perspective of authority has a lot to do with your view of God. So whether that was your parents growing up
Oh,
or the government or whatever, that can taint your perspective of God.
it's not God. Yeah, none of those
Right.
things, right?
Exactly. But like,
Yeah.
for example, if your parents were super judgmental or you grew up super religious and strict, you're going to view God as judging you and all these things. For example,
Yeah, and also like I grew up in the church and I grew up in a Lutheran church.
Okay. Wow.
And yeah, so definitely more intense. My family became like the relaxed Christians as we got older that went to like the really like this one that's like big mega churches now. I don't
Okay.
go to that. I found a really sweet one by my where I live, where I really like the community.
Awesome.
And it's pretty low key. But I think I grew up with such a different perspective of God and church based on just the way that it was being in that kind of a church. And I think it becoming really political and all these things that actually have nothing to do with it at all and have nothing to do with God and like
Yep.
who that like. So for me, it's become more of that relationship and finding a community you feel again and good into. But I definitely think that growing up can taint your desire to want to surrender to that if because a lot of us don't have good experiences of growing up in that. And so, but it has nothing to do with God, but
Right.
oftentimes
Exactly.
we associate that
Yeah.
deeply.
Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it's a journey. You're very much inspiring me to want to. It's crazy how much in your life has changed. The stomach thing is absolutely insane to me. I'm sure it was insane to you.
Yeah. You
I'm
say
sure it's
that.
crazy to tell people. They're like, "How did those deep problems go?" And you're like, God, they're probably like, are you like fucking with me?
Yeah, for real. I'm like, one of my exes, we're still friends, and when I told her, she was hesitant to believe it because
Yeah.
she saw me for 2 years. Like, we
Yeah.
had to be super careful with what I ate. If I ate the wrong thing, I'm in bed for hours. Like,
Yeah.
and she was like, what? And I'm like, oh, it's.
She's like, why couldn't you have done this before?
I know, right?
She's like, our lives would have been better.
Yeah,
Do you feel like any romantic relationships that you were in these last years were like pivotal to this mindset that you have now?
all of them,
Or yeah, no,
all of them.
all of
Yep,
them.
100%, all of them.
Hmm.
Um, just because it's not working out doesn't mean it's not working out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was my own will and trying to trying to do things myself instead of God's plan for my life, I'm grateful for it. Like, you can't mess up, in my
Yeah.
perspective, in my opinion, because even in the mess ups, God's going to course correct it. Like, there's this quote that's like, when God gave you your assignment or your purpose, he took into account your stupidity. Like, like, that there's gonna be mess ups. I mean, if we're gonna get biblical for a second, King David, had an affair, right, and murdered people afterward to try to cover it up. So
Yeah.
like, and he's a man after God's own heart. Like, yo, what? So even if we're messing up, and I'm not saying that any of my relationships are a mess up by any means, because I'm extremely grateful for all of them and still very close
Hmm.
with all of them,
Yeah.
thankfully. Um, it was definitely a part of the the process for me, especially the one that I did 2 years ago, to like, oh wow, I reached the end of myself. That heartache was what woke me up when we broke up.
Yeah.
And then the one after that was kind of like as I'm building this relationship with God, and that was really tough for us because she had different views. But that got me clear on my non-negotiables that I wasn't clear on when we even got into the relationship. And
Yeah.
it couldn't have happened any other way with anybody else because of her level of how she held difficulty or difficult conversations or me through it all.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I would have been where I'm at if it wasn't for her in my life, right? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's been paramount.
Do you feel like those patterns that you had, such as like emotional, like chasing unavailable partners or codependency or all those things, do you
Mm.
feel like God healed those through you being in those relationships and that was God? Do you feel like God gave you the desire to want to heal it yourself and be interested in these subjects? Like, how do you feel like um, healing those patterns are part of like
It's a
God
really
for
good
you?
question. Yeah. So maybe all of it would be the most accurate, I think, because there's a part of me that's again, I'm right. I'm self-proclaimed. I have a lot of knowledge in
Yeah,
attachment
totally you.
styles and other things, right? Like
Mhm, mhm.
10 years of research on this stuff and
Yeah.
interviewing couples and
Mm,
working with hundreds of thousands of people. So
yeah.
I just see the patterns that are there, and then having that knowledge to work then on myself,
Yeah.
and having the courage to do the work.
Yeah.
And I felt like there were moments where I was either running from it or I was trying to keep it at bay. It was still
Yeah.
this willpower thing,
Mhm.
and sometimes you get triggered and my stuff comes up. I'm human,
Yeah.
but I don't. I think the moment that it changed was when I stopped idolizing relationship, like actually, and put God on the I'm serving an audience of one, and my life isn't about my lover, because for the longest time it was.
Yeah.
It might,
Yeah.
like, and how I know it was is because if our relationship was going great, I was going great. If it wasn't going great, I was a
Yep.
mess.
Mess. Heard.
Whether that's anybody listening, that could be your career, that could be money, that could be your living situation. Like, what is that for you? That's how you know what is on the quote unquote throne seat of your life. What's number one to you? Is it your health? Like, you know, um, and so for me, it was relationship. And I remember the day I actually decided to change that. My capacity to stay grounded, I have an anxious attachment style, right?
Same.
My
Same here.
capacity to stay grounded was like, because all of a sudden I didn't get my self worth from it. I wasn't getting validation from it.
Yep. Yep.
You
Yep.
know what
Yep.
I mean?
Your groundedness is in something super way more like stable and loving and
Right.
expansive. But when it's on someone like that really shrinks your window of
Yeah.
tolerance, I guess.
Oh yeah, for sure. So that was a big moment for me. It was like tearing down the idol of relationship or the person that I was in love with. Um, and like living for that. That became my adventure. That became my challenge. And I think that happens to some nice guys, if you will, where it's, like every man has a venture we want to go on and a battle to fight. And if your woman becomes that, well, that's what happened with me. I idolized her in that, whoever her was at the moment.
Yeah.
So it just, I was then freed again myself
Hmm.
to go after a new purpose or a new, like the real thing that was like, what is it that I'm here to do? And my business, while it was self-serving, was still in that vein of what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm had this moment this past 6 months where God is just revealing things and tearing things out of my heart where I was like, yeah, it doesn't get to serve. That's not going into the next, the selfish thing,
Yeah.
for example, um, and the ways in which there's a lot there, but
Mm.
money management, all of it.
Yeah.
I forgot who said it. Somebody said like, the work works you. like whatever your career is, whatever your job is, especially
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur. We don't stay in if anybody listening who's a coach knows this, or like any entrepreneur of any kind,
Yeah.
like we stop because the work isn't producing results we want when we don't realize that it's working us. It's shaping our character, it's shaping
Yeah.
our perspectives, our worldview to be the person to hold the money. Because when I was making, the multi six figures,
Mm-hmm.
it cracked me. Right
Yeah.
after that, I had my overdose because I was spent it just as fast as I was making it. My anxiety was getting more and more and more and more. My caffeine addiction was more and more and more and more. It was breaking me. And so God needed to punch me in the face and sit me down and be like, this has to stop. Like there was no other way that I would have stopped other than a near death experience. Honestly.
Oh my God. So intense. But
I'm
yeah.
like, I would have started doing harder drugs and more uppers. And it just would have been that's the route I was going down.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's so interesting how we get to this point, and I'm curious, like, how do you go about relationships and your own patterning now? Is it just kind of that same thing of like when you feel like you're falling short in an area, or you have something that comes up that you're like, I want to shift, like, do you move with it differently now?
Most
Um
definitely. Yeah. It's a good question. And again, I talk about this in the book. Perspective. That's what it is.
I'm gonna need it.
Uh, of just revealing information. So
Yeah.
revealing my heart instead of communicating to try to change or make a decision, which is still somewhat in this present moment a shadow of mine. As a man, I want to like
Yeah.
provide clarity and like direction and all of that. And sometimes when I don't have it, it rocks me.
Yeah.
And my work has been showing up in the mess and showing up in the I don't know.
Hmm.
And that it's changing my definition of strength,
Yeah.
So it yeah, if I get triggered and all the things, it's just letting it be known instead of like trying to inner work it and then show up differently. Like
Just letting it be and
not
exist.
no, letting it be known, letting them know.
Letting know. Yeah.
Yeah. And then still, yeah, like in that way, it's coming from and this is the biggest perspective shift that I had, was coming from the lens of we and teamwork,
Yes.
right? Like, so letting my partner and teammate know that this is coming up in me and I'm going to be
Together.
working on it. And like, maybe there's something you can do, maybe not, I don't know, but hey, boom, it's out there.
Do you ever feel now like fear around the way that you operate now? Like, does it scare you to let go like this?
Oh yeah. Um, for sure. It's, yeah.
It's like your trust, like, I can even just feel it of like it, even though it's felt so bad for me, it's also felt good to have my like grip on things. Um, because I've always had a very certain view of what I want for my life. I'd be like, I want this. This is what it's going to look like. Like,
Yeah.
I grew up being like, I'm going to get married at 23 or 24. I'm going to have this. I'm going to have this. And my life has looked so insanely different and has had so many curveballs, more than many people I know.
Mm.
Maybe besides you. But I just, it's very, I have kept going and kept going and kept going, trying to shape my life and make it be what I want it to be. And it's so painful because no matter how hard I try, like, it has never, I've surpassed 24, wasn't married at 24. All the things that I thought for my life growing up in Minnesota and all the things, like, it just has been so insanely different. And so it's gotten to a point where it's like, I have a certain amount of control, but I also feel like I also kind of have none in a way. And it's kind of felt like, and I agree with you, that I'm a God's employee or something. And so I don't know. I guess that was just my last question, is like, I'm curious around like, how do you, like, it's so fucking scary. And I find myself just like, it's so hard to just be like, I'm not right. It's so hard to just let your life be something different than you planned it. Like, literally, it's like your dreams are falling in front of your eyes. But I also look back in my character and who I've become is like Exactly, like, I could never hold a relationship before when I was 18 if I didn't go through all those experiences or everything, like, I'm the type of person who can hold everything that I think God has planned for me. Um, so looking back, there's trust, but going forward, it's really hard to let go, especially if what you're experiencing now isn't ideal or it hurts.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm. I mean, even this weekend, I was gripped with fear. I had to do some shaking out, and I
Mhm.
had to call in the troops and my friends to like support me because it was tough. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
going through a huge identity shift with this rebrand and a bunch of things. The old way
Yeah.
dying and acknowledging it, acknowledging that I'm letting go of a way
Mhm.
of being in my career, um,
Yeah.
and surrendering that. And my it's shown up for me whether it was intimate relationship or
Mhm.
business, the two that's been loud at least, has been like, okay, this is in front of me and I like this, but like, are you my wife? Or like, okay, this is the thing, and I've got this idea for business and this book, but like,
Is
is
this
this the
it?
path? And I'm
Yeah.
like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm putting so much pressure on myself. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's crazy the amount of pressure I can experience
Yeah.
to know if it's the thing. And
Nothing.
I'm in the it's scary to let that go because I was so clear on that thing many
Mhm.
times. I mean, my first girlfriend became a fiance, right? Like, and so I'm like, all right, I get to actually let that go. What I think it gets to look like, even the seeking for that level of clarity, and I just have the like be satisfied with the clarity that I have now and dance with that truth.
Yeah.
And the closer that I get to the present moment, the more peace I feel. The further I get from it, the more fear I feel.
Mhm.
In the timeline of how I'm viewing things and what I make it mean, or what about make it mean about tomorrow, and all of this stuff.
Mhm.
So I am just it, in this present moment. Yeah, it's rocking me, and I mean, what's coming up is like the definition of courage is to act in spite of fear.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I've been riddled with a lot of fear recently, and I don't think all of it has to do with my present reality. I think some of it is grief and past fear that I'm finally slowed down enough to
Yeah.
process.
Process.
You know what I mean? So
Yes.
I also can see that. Like I said, I'm doing a parasite cleanse, and I have Lyme disease, and so I'm killing that. And there's a lot of bodily with that, but then actually
Well,
processing. Would you mind if I read a bit of the book,
no,
bit
I love
on
that.
fear
Please. Yeah, of course, I would love that.
specifically? Because
I would
let me
love
go.
that.
So this is the chapter on fear, safety, and time. Um, it's short-ish. I'm gonna read through it.
Yeah, please do.
You can't reason your way out of fear. Being too much is how you get what's meant for you. Holding back is how you get the lessons that remind you to be more. It's in insecurity that we find security. Getting cheated on didn't create fear. Thinking that I wasn't lovable and not worthy of love because I got cheated on was the real fear. Whatever you fear, or wherever your fear is, you will find a way to prove yourself right, to keep yourself in your own prison of being right, a comfortable slave to fear. There it was. The one who says, I'm afraid to be living in scarcity might already be. Fear isn't about the future, it's about the unacceptance of what is. The start of something is how you tell the fruit of it. If you come from fear, you'll create more of it. If you come from safety, you'll create more of it. Be mindful of what part of you takes action. What if the only thing you're running from is an uncomfortable feeling? To be fearless is to be senseless. To be shameless is to be aimless. But wisdom favors the reverent. There is a safety that isn't actually safe. It's just familiar, or it helps you feel better about yourself. You'll know it's real safety when the fear diffuses. Physical safety regulates the nervous system. Emotional safety opens space for connection and vulnerability. Spiritual safety brings undeniable peace and joy. There's a safety that comes from fear and a safety that comes from facing it. What's safe loves you as you are. What's love shines light on what's not. If you want to get there faster, slow down. If you can't do it slow, you can't do it fast. Honor the season you're in. You'll know what season you're in by what season you want, not by what season you want to be in, but by the signs around you in life. What are the events that just happened? What's happening right now? What do you sense will happen? It's a good way to temp check the season you're in. And trying to skip a season will prolong it. Millennials are all about what will people think because of social media. Just like baby boomers who went through the Great Depression became hoarders. The next generations are going through emotional depression and emptiness because of the ease we've created. The human heart craves triumph. And what is the aim of purpose now? We have all the time in the world and no time at all. And how you feel about your past affects your future more than you know. Everything changes when you realize what doesn't. There are many answers, yet patience solves a lot of things. When you don't have anything to run from anymore, you're free to run towards what you want. Don't forget to remember your future. You can't speed up growth without creating deficiency, defects, or neglect. Slow down. You might miss the point. When you understand time, you'll understand love.
That gave me chills. That was amazing. God wrote that, but
I
no.
know. I'm like, whoa, that was good.
The part that was like, those who are afraid of scarcity might already be living in it. I wasn't necessarily thinking of that feeling for myself, but how we're afraid of emotions, and then we try to create a life to not feel them, and then we're kind of doing that by doing that.
Right?
It's backwards, but
It is.
it makes sense that we're doing that, and there's like this beautiful freedom of giving in and just like letting go, and like freedom of just being like,
Yeah.
it's all okay, and stop running from it.
Right.
Yeah. Is there anything from this conversation that feels like on your heart to share or express, or any other learnings, wisdom that you feel like you didn't get a space to share, like anything else on your heart?
No, I mean, the biggest thing is like, I think being honest with yourself on how you actually feel. And I think if we
Mm-hmm.
can get to that point of just being honest with ourselves, eh, it takes slowing down to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can either make that decision and slow down or enough to kind of be honest with yourself, or you're going to keep doing life and let life pass you by until it's towards the end of your life,
Mm-hmm.
or you're going to have a wake up moment. You're going to lose somebody, or some tragic thing is going to have to stop you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I just am saying, like, you don't have to do it fast. And we
Mm-hmm.
live in a culture that everything's instant and quick and fast and accessible. Like, the phone is in ease of access to the internet is only 20 years old. Electricity, for that matter, right? Like cars and transportation, we have sped up in the bell curve of like how things have sped up. We are on that crazy, it almost just looks like a straight up line at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not built for that as humans. So I think the only thing left that I'd have to say is, like, don't forget your humanness. Slow down and be honest with yourself. And when you can properly have the right perspective to interface with reality, you will have less problems in your soul. It's not about money in a bank account or a relationship, this or that. You will feel at peace and find a home, if you will.
Yeah.
But you gotta slow down to the tempo of wisdom.
Yeah. I love that. I kind of been, I know you can stretch it all across your lifetime. Like you can go wide
Yeah,
versus having to go so deep in right now, everything now.
totally.
I have all the time
Exactly.
to do everything I want. So what's right? What's most important to me right in this moment? Yeah.
Yeah. And trusting yourself. Like it's all gonna happen. It's all okay.
Yeah. Well, where can people find you? And the book, how do people get access to that? Can I get a pre-order? I want to
Most
read
definitely. Yeah.
it.
So if this is September
Mhm.
30th, 2025 is when the book is coming out. So if y'all are
Yep,
listening to this before then,
they will be.
go to Instagram at the Heart Guy,
Mhm.
and it'll probably be in the link in my bio and all of that, to get like on the wait list to get notified.
Okay.
I'll send you an email and a text message when it goes live, because it's going to go live on Amazon, and so y'all can get it on Amazon. Just search Perspectives by Kevin Crenshaw if it's after September 30th, 2025.
Perfect. Sounds good. And then you're the heart guy on Instagram and I'll include everything in
Pretty
the show
much
notes
everywhere. Yeah.
everywhere.
the.heart.guy.
Crazy that you identified with that, like being that so much. That's the title. I love it.
I don't know if that title chose me or I chose it, because dang, God
God
was
chose
like,
it.
really? You're
God
the
chose it,
heart
baby.
guy? All right, let's bet. Let's go. Ah!
It's your mission, I guess.
Yeah.
It encapsulates everything. Thank you so much for being here. You are really like the real deal of a person, and
Thank
you're I feel like in the moments where you feel like you have literally lived 500 lives and didn't need to be this crazy and it didn't need to go through all this, I truly like, even just how I receive you, I'm like, I don't think there's not another perspective like yours. It's
you.
going to touch people and change people just by you living through your own truth. Like even just this conversation has like really touched me and how I want to think about my life. So
Amazing.
thank you. And I'm really, really, really excited for your journey with your business and you finding your actual self through it. I think it's
Thank you.
going to be wonderful. So,
I really appreciate it. You know, that's the cool thing about Perspectives, because from that perspective, it was all for a reason.
oh, yeah. Right.
So thank you. And
Sure.
it really has been an honor to be on this podcast and this conversation. So I appreciate it.
Yay. Oh, my goodness.